Hello, friends. Can y'all hear me okay? Could somebody give us a thumbs up if you're hearing everything all right? Record. Are we good? Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, just a few announcements before we get started. Every Thursday night, we're having our novena at 5:45, where we will offer up prayers for anyone who has sent in a prayer request. If you'd like us to do prayers for you or for someone you love, living or not, please send that request to prayer@heartwoodrefuge.org. The prayers are done silently, so they're not publicly shared. So please feel free to send those in to us. Also, please like, follow, and share us on your public media. That helps us to spread the Dharma even further. Also, donations are gratefully accepted. Monetary donations are very helpful, but there's other ways that you can support the mission here at Heartwood. One of them is by choosing Amazon Smile. And when you do that, go to Heartwood Refuge and select that as your preferred charity. And then 0.5% of your purchases will come to Heartwood. Also, we have an Amazon wish list, and we want to do a big shout out and thank you to all of you who have been supporting us in that way. It's a tremendous help. And lastly, we have our next final Friday fun night coming up. And this month, we're going to be doing an Untalent show. And please feel free to share talent or non-talent. We're just going to enjoy each other's company, share the Dharma in a very fun way. Thank you so much, friends.
Is Landon born in no. When does he come out?
He has a schedule. It just comes out at certain times of the day between his rest and me. I know they sent it to me, but it's pretty intense schedule.
Okay, you could send him an email that if I could see him at 3:30 or look and see me on his schedule, he can come. Hello, my friend. Oh. I know sometimes you wonder what I'm laughing at when I see you, and actually it's nothing at all. That's just
Police officers and point them out.
it's just a kind of pleasure in the coming together of the song that makes one feel whole and feel complete. There was a song that we used to learn in junior high school, I think it was. No man is an island, no man stands alone. Each man, something like each man is my brother, each man is my friend, it's something like that. But you know, that's so much what the Dharma is saying, that we have a false dichotomy, a false division, but actually we are indivisible. And so there is a space within the micro world, you could say, that on the surface we see a separation, but if we could go deeper and deeper and deeper to the finest particles of what could be considered the universe, you will find a web of interconnected, a web of interconnectedness. So we only appear to be separated. That means that I have available to my consciousness the mind of a deity, and I also have the mind of a mass murderer. And so it's just where along that tandem we show up today that lets us know something about where our mind is today. So one whose mind is in unwholesome spaces, you can know it's just like standing on that scale. You know how they have a different kind of scale now, they're digital, but in the doctor's office they have the scale and you stand on it and it has a weight. And the weight establishes a certain vicinity or category, which might be like you can move it every 10 pounds or every 50 pounds. So if I weighed, say 250 pounds, I wouldn't start with the weight at 0. I might move the weight to 200, and then I just keep inching up until it tells me where in the 200s I am. So it's something like that. And so this investigation of states that the Buddha talks about is so very important, because it's not just knowing some kind of Dharma out there or some kind of teachings out there, but it's really about knowing one's own mind and where we appear along that scale and what we choose to do about it, because there really is a choice. And I won't say that every choice we take or that our choice can take us to 100%, because there just may not be the capacity due to many things. For instance, due to the karma that is ripening. There may not be the capacity for me to zing to 100%, but I will go as close as I can, and I say, oh, well, it just wasn't in the stars. Oh, I just can't do that. Oh, that's just me. That's just how I am, And this is our cop-out. If the Dharma doesn't do anything else, it encourages us to be tenacious and to really invoke, activate energy to reach our desired goals. And if we're like couch potatoes, intellectual couch potatoes, though. We like to, we're not like just goofing off, but we like to read and think about things as if so much reading and so much thinking is the actual doing. But when it comes to actually doing, we're a little bit lazy in that area. But it's actually the doing, that is everything. Or I'll say that it's 90% of it, because, as a man thinks, so is he in this world. So there is some thinking involved, but we have taken that to be the bulk of of what is required, and that's just like the foundation. So I thought today that we could do a reflection, and I'm going to try to tie it in a little bit, just a little bit, to our meditation practice, and talk a little bit about the different meditation subjects. Not too much, but I'm going to give you the reference so that you can look it up. Angela, I received your package, so I'll share with you in a month, but I got hooked from the first page. I can tell you that. So if we can put up on the screen today. Someone called me while they're getting that. someone called me this morning and had a long conversation because the person is opening a facility for seniors. And she's been getting a lot of input from, her the people that she goes to for advice and so forth. And someone called her this morning about becoming a hospice instead, because and this particular type, it was her accountant, and this particular type of hospice setup, you basically just provide the space, and they send in the people to work with the people. And she said, so my concern about that is, they don't pay you enough money. This is like my last go round. I want to make sure that I make enough money. I said, you know what, you shouldn't even be doing this. If that's what your objective is. I said, and then I just talked with her. And I talked with her about the difference in, I'm not saying, she says, well, you can't have a business. And I said, well, this shouldn't be a business for you. I mean, there is a business aspect to it, but it should really be a calling, that is something in your heart and wanting to offer something to the people who are sick, who are dying at this stage of life. And yes, you do have to put the pen to the paper to make sure that the math works, or you can't be available to them. I said, but if you're, the first thing that you're looking at is like you want to make more money, then maybe you should look and see if this is really the thing that you should be doing. And as I talked with her, and at first she got offended with me. I'm like, don't be offended. I'm trying to save you from some suffering. Believe me, because I explained to her why it would be terrible for her if she went in that only with the money in mind. And we talked about a lot of things. By the time we got to the end of the conversation, her mind began to shift, and you could tell the mind was shifting because no one had really talked to her about undertaking something because you felt you had something to offer, in that area or in that regard. And as she began to recount her life and so forth, she began to get in touch with that part of her. I said, why did this whole area come up for you? And she didn't really know, but in my sort of chastising her around her view, she began to tap into her own mind and her own reasoning and her own thoughts, and she unearthed something that was there that was being obscured by her ideas about business and about making money. And she began to get more in touch with her own heart in the matter. And I gave her a series of questions. Would you still do it if only this? What about if only this? What about if this comes up? What about if this? And by the time she said, oh, I see, I've been, I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't even know what was in my own mind. So when we're supposed to talk again tonight at 9 o'clock, because I told her I have a very long day on Thursdays. I start, preparing around 9 a.m. and then somebody calls me and interrupts that. So I'm rushing in the door by noon, and I go all the way until, I don't know, maybe 7:30 or 8 o'clock, back-to-back things. She said, oh, that's okay, I can call you at 9. She couldn't even get that, like I might be tired by 9 o'clock. But that's all right, I'm going to talk to her at 9 tonight. But I told her to spend all day today not thinking about the business, but just thinking, about her own, looking at her own mind and her own heart in whatever endeavor she takes up. And I'd be interested to see how she used her day today. So our contemplation today is going to be study one's own mind, then take a meditation subject. Study one's own mind, then take a meditation subject. And when this came to me, it started in one way, and then it shifted. It was really around studying one's own mind, knowing one's own temperament, the enlightenment factor, or the investigation of states. And then it began to shift, because that's where you have the intersection of insight born of concentration. So then the concentration is going to be taken up in our meditation. I tell you, the meditation is not just sitting in a certain posture on a pillow. You know, that might be the way we start, and that might be something that we do every day. But that's not all there is to meditation. It's constantly being in a certain state. It's knowing when, and from that state, being able to receive some purified insight, you know. So one has to know the state of one's mind at all times. What is arising, what is coming across the screen, what is entering there, and part of mindfulness is recognizing what precipitated that, what came before that. There is some remembering, as if remembering the last time one's mind was in this state, and all the time you spent figuring out what was really on your mind, and you came away with something, but now have forgotten it. Is this similar to this? Is this different? Is this different from this? And so we're constantly, you know, in that sort of thing, not with a discrimination as opposed to with a judgment, though. With a judgment, we're judging this is good and this is bad, but that's not really the beneficial way of examining. It's with discrimination to know that this is useful, it's beneficial, it's fruitful, this is not. So if you could think of good and bad in that sense, it brings peace, it brings harmony, you know, as opposed to causing confusion, or, you know, substitute the word good and bad and just look and see, find the actual essences or the qualities of one's mind. So it takes away that element of judgment, it takes away the blame, it takes away the condemnation, it takes away the not wanting to look, because to look is to judge, is to blame, is to condemn. And so it allows us to more quickly move towards, what is this? What is this happening right now? What is rising up in my mind? How am I piecing the present moment together? And not just the present moment, but evaluating the present moment in light of what one has discovered before. It's like if I had to learn how to drive all over again every time I got behind the wheel of a car, then I probably wouldn't drive. But recognizing that we're so wonderfully made that we have these faculties that allow us to be able to make progress in the present moment based on the mind-body's capacity to hold or retain impressions from the past that we can use to create a clear path towards the future. Somebody wrote me yesterday and asked me what does the Buddha say about hope? Now, the person who wrote this to me has asked me that, I think, almost every year. Mostly when there is something shifting in the outward matters of society, and people are starting to be more optimistic, like maybe something can change, maybe things will be better. And it's almost as if to say that he, although he truly desires for things to be better, he doesn't have any hope within himself that things will be better. I said, well, you know, there's two ways of thinking. Things will be worse or things will be better. If it's just thinking, it's not the real thing, you know, it doesn't really matter. And isn't it better to think things will be better than to suffer prematurely if they're not, you know, by thinking they'll be worse? I mean, you can just take it like on that elementary level and leave it right there. Better to have a good thought than a thought that tears one down in mind and body and in spirit, you know. So you don't even have to go that far with that. But it was the question about hope again. And so I talked to him again about the ingredients, the hope. Hope is not just wishing for something or not even wishing, but just saying like, I don't know, I just get hope it's going to be better. I said, but there are some active ingredients towards hope that involve reflection, that involve action, you know, and it involves reassessment, and that involves energy or stepping forward, a propulsion, you know, of moving towards the thing that you would like to see come into manifestation. Of course, and then after all of that's done to the best of our individual ability, all bets are off because everybody else is here with us. So it depends on what others do, how they do, when they do, where they do, why they do the same as us. So this is part of the soup that we're in samsara. And you can see then how dangerous samsara is, how unreliable, how insecure. As much as we become or think we are secure in certain things, some of us think we are secure because we hold certain places of authority. Some think we are secure, or they are secure because they have certain finances. Some people think they are secure because, you know, and each one of us finds our little pockets, our little places of security. But the truth of the matter is that in samsara there's no security to be found anywhere. And when one is convinced of that, they begin to search for that which is not worldly, that which is not fabricated by our impressions, our perceptions. They start to look for something that pierces the veil of ignorance, and they have the hope that it can be found in this very life. Otherwise, what are we doing and why are we doing it? Some of us are really, really, quote, practicing, unquote, and yet don't really have a hope that the Dharma will produce in us or allow in us a certain level of unfoldment. So it just becomes one more self-help thing we do. It just becomes one more, personal development thing we do, and we don't hold it any higher than we hold our worldly aspirations, and then we try to bring this down to the level of worldly aspiration, and then it just absolutely doesn't work for us any better than anything else in samsara works for us. And so we have to get clear on our expectation of the Dharma, its value, what we think is possible for us to attain and to walk in. We have to be clear about that. And when one is clear about that, one can look at their own mind and see where they are on that tandem and not even take it personally in the sense of I'm so bad or I'm so good, but they do take it personally in the sense of today is the day. I must act now. And you just have to unravel that, what that means. Words are so woefully inadequate, to try to explain life, but we still live it. We still experience it. So let us read together, study one's own mind, then take a meditation subject. There are profitable and unprofitable states, reprehensible and blameless, inferior and superior, dark and bright. A man wise in temperament notices how his mind inclines. Can we read it again? There are profitable and unprofitable states, reprehensible and blameless, inferior and superior, dark and bright. A man wise in temperament notices how his mind inclines. And this is taken from the Visuddhimagga, the Path of Purification, under the chapter, the Earth Kasina, on page 133. And I actually started someplace else. So I'd like for us to just sit with this for a minute. Because here we look like we see a dichotomy. There's this and there's this. And that's what we have in this relative world. There is a relativity. So I have to have some recognition or some idea of light to be able to compare with dark, or darkness to be able to compare with light. You can keep it up for a minute, please. And so we find ourselves between these two poles, and we're somewhere between them. When the Buddha talks about the middle way, we get to a place where it's not, I don't think it's so much coming to like a middle, but the balance is the capacity to see the whole thing from this end to this end, and to know where there's some inclination towards one end or the other. And this is the whole thing about cultivating inner integrity and virtue. And these seem like, they seem very subjective, and in a sense they are, but they're only subjective wherever you point them out. If you took the whole scale of it, then it's no longer subjective, because you have the whole thing, and one then can move along or slide along that tandem wherever there needs to be the balancing that brings the peace, that brings the ease, that brings a certain quality to the moment. And sometimes you can start off in one place and there's this gradual shift. Sometimes there's a sudden shift, and that's when an insight emerges, when one is really giving effort to know one's own mind and to know the state one's mind is in. It doesn't mean that we have to go around like, sometimes when we can do one thing to keep us from having to do another thing. I mean, the mind is so cunning. And that cunning is part of, like, say, the imbalance that we can have. That means that one can know that they have done an action that wasn't truly wholesome, and it wasn't, or it was done, but it wasn't really authentic. I wasn't really doing it because I wanted to, because it rose up, but I was doing it for some other reason, some other motive. And then one can recognize that. And sometimes we don't know what to do when we recognize it. One way that we do it is, oh, I'm so sorry, I did this, and now I recognize that, that wasn't really my intention on that. I got that one off of me. This is how we this is how we have a tendency to do. We just thought about it, intellectualized it, mouthed it, and now we're done, you know. But it would be even better to not even mention it, just watch for that action, that behavior, that mode, the way one's inclining, and the next time a similar situation comes up, don't do that same thing. Don't just keep doing the same thing and come and say, oh, I saw this thing about myself, you know, and I'm so sorry that I, you know, did that, you know. No, just pay attention to how that came about if one really wants to change it. So we don't have to be continually outing ourselves, is what I'm saying. Sometimes we're afraid to take up something because we think it's gonna like embarrass us, it's gonna cost us too much. No, I mean, if you wanna share it, you can share it. All I'm saying is, if you share it, then the next time that same situation comes up, let me see something different. Otherwise, don't waste my time, keep sharing about, oh, I see this thing in me, this way in me, this behavior in me. Better than just keep it to yourself and just keep working and just keep working on it. Because otherwise we'll get into the habit of doing that instead of actually working, you know, on in the moment, subduing that mind that causes us to act in that way. Are you understanding? Are you with me? Okay. Okay. So so in this particular sharing, it because we're always talking about non-duality, you know, and we start dropping these catchphrases, and I'm not sure that we always really understand them or get the best use out of the inference, what they're pointing to, and we start hopping on the words, and we think like, you know, this mind of non-duality, like that's the highest mind, but you know, a mind of non-duality has all the minds there. It can recognize every single mind, every type of mind. It can know where one's mind is, and because they can know where another's mind is, because it breaks down that barrier. The things that we are trying to uproot, very difficult to uproot. We have to allow some things to be broken down, you know. And when they're broken down, the barrier drops, and then one sees and one knows. Not necessarily through intellectual logic, but through getting real with one's self. To come to know oneself, then one has one less veil or one less, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a panel. What's that thing right there? Mm-hmm. Oh, that wasn't the word I wanted. Okay, but it has one barrier. It has one less, we have one less barrier to another. And we do that by working on ourselves. So that's why we can recognize when a person has a barrier, you know, or something that they're holding up, facade, thank you, has something that's there because you have penetrated and it's not there for you. So you can clearly see theirs because you have lowered your own. And in lowering one's own, then one has a greater capacity for seeing and operating, if they choose, out of a good heart that gives some space for the one who still has an obstacle or a barrier or a facade or a screen, something that's blocking their vision, their true understanding. And so we should know the purposes for meditation and how, what we're meditating on and why we're meditating on it. it is really so that one can provide the fodder, the nutriment, the fertilizer that one needs to grow what one wants to grow, to cultivate what one wants to cultivate. And so here, if we can understand that, we won't think of a non-duality as a hodgepodge, like if you had a soup, and I know the Chinese have the 5 flavors, and they even have a 5-flavor spice. I like it, and it's supposed to be sweet, sour, pungent, bitter, and something, one other thing, and I like it. But actually, unless you really know how to mix that right, it's not gonna come out good if you take a pot of soup and you throw something sweet in there, something sour in there, something pungent in there, and it's all stirred up and mixed up. It's not so palatable. But when one knows that this needs a little sweetening, and and salty, that's the other one. I'm trying not to think about salt right now. Oh, I'm doing a good job, because salt just left my mind. Now that's an insight. I'm serious, it's these little things when you're recognizing the mind, because I went off of salt about three or 4 days ago, and it doesn't even take long, but I'm like, if it doesn't have salt, it's not worth eating. And I'm trying to change that attitude, because I need to change it, for my health. And when I thought I had 80 years left, it didn't matter. I'll work on it down the road. But now I'm down the road, and so I'm working on it now. But rather than me thinking about salt all the time and comparing it to how it would taste when it's salted, and it has other things. When I eat something, I'm trying to identify, like, what does avocado really taste like? Absolutely nothing. I'm like, what does, so that's gonna help me fall out of love with my greed around food, that I should not be eating, because my body can't process, and I say it for everybody, I'm just talking about me, my body can't process certain things, and I'm trying to, make the diabetes better, make it go away. And without insulin, which falsifies numbers, but I'm trying to do it now with nutrition, since I can now keep it under control with insulin. Before I couldn't even keep it under control with insulin. And now I can keep it under control with insulin, but I recognize that's insulin that I'm taking. It has nothing to do with me and what I'm doing other than taking insulin. So now I'm going to the next step, which is now I can arouse the confidence, and maybe I can work on my greed around things that I like, salty and sweet, basically. So this is how one has to work with oneself, and any endeavor, spiritual, non-spiritual, it's really all the same. And so instead of thinking about how this would taste better with salt, I'm thinking about what is actually here. What is this flavor, and how this flavor is just this flavor. And so I'm, with my own mind, I'm setting aside my prejudices. With my own mind, I'm setting aside my preferences, and I'm just trying to investigate and be with what is there. And so this is how we get rid of the comparing mind, because we're always comparing something to something. We're always comparing. But if we don't compare, then we can see the whole spectrum, and we can know exactly where, we are in terms of any particular view. And in that space of looking, of just observing, we drop, you know, the sense of shame around our performance, around our non-performance. We drop the sense of shame around what we think somebody might see in us, or what we might see. And so it becomes not a judgmental kind of shame, you know, but there is a healthy kind that lets, oh, I could do better than that. That's what I'm saying to myself. Before I was saying, I can't do any better. I can't do any better. I can't eat it if it doesn't have this on it. You know, I can't help that craving I have for ice cream. You know, it's just a little bit. I mean, you gotta have one little vice. It's just ice cream and chocolate cake. You know, so it's always making an excuse for it. But now I don't have to make an excuse. I either do like Yoda. He says there's no try. You either do or you don't do. That's it. I mean, how it's actually very, very empowering. And if we take that approach with our practice, it will cease to be practice. It will actually become, we will realize the trueness of things beneath our contrived stories about what they are and how they are and what we are and how we are. So I wanted to go back to, I had something from my book by Nobu Pamu, The Dharma That Every Buddhist Must Follow. And I said, you know what, I'm going to lose them at the title. Because as soon as they see must right there, all kinds of thoughts are going to come up in their mind. I must follow it. You know, because that's how we are. But I love the book because she pulls no punches. She just goes straight, you know, she just goes straight there. You can take it, leave it. She doesn't care. She's not really attached to that. She says, I just would not leave you, you know, I would not leave you confused, you know, and you can just take with what she says and do with it what you will. But I love it more than half the book when I first got it. It's like I was offended on every page. You know, now I'm only offended on every other page. And I recognize that as growth, not where I want to be, not where I was. You know, so we can kind of take this easy approach. It's an easy approach, but it's not a lazy one. It's an accommodating, accepting approach, but not the spoilage of not seeing and acknowledging what is true for us in that moment. You know? And this is how we get better and better at merging with the Buddha nature that is resident in us. I know I say it all the time, but I'd like to say it again today. The Buddha said that this nature is our nature, but it has been obscured, you know, and overlaid by our hindrances and our habitual tendencies since beginningless time, not just this lifetime, but this mind stream that has been inherited as an eye upon your body, you know, comes with it many things already embedded, that when I do a certain thing, I nurture and flower and I nurture that and water that. And so that flower grows and presents itself, you know, as coming from me in this life, you know. But the same way I nurture and water seeds, I can also pluck up and uproot, you know, certain weeds. You know, well, I shouldn't say weeds because some people think weeds are weeds and other people think weeds are medicine. You just have to know what is what, you know. And that's a simple way that we use, you know, like words and views that can sometimes cut us off or separate us from something. I was in a different spiritual practice, and I say that because this is how we can remember something and apply it in the present moment. You know, it's like we would, and I was a priestess in a certain order, and people would come to us for support around their goals or their ambitions, or you know, if they were sick in certain things, and I was trained to pick certain things out of the, wouldn't even call it a garden, because you could just look out in any yard or any forest or any place, and there were certain what people thought were weeds were medicines that we used to, I'm trying to be very careful with this conversation. There are certain herbs that we could pick that could support a person either mentally or physically, you know, around improving their mind state, and thereby increasing their opportunities for the thing that they wanted to come into, become a reality in their life, okay? And these were like things that we just thought were useless and worthless. In the garden, we learned to pick them and how to pull the essence from it, because everything has an essence. You think we're the only thing in creation with an essence, you know, but every living thing has a certain quality, a certain essence, a certain usefulness, a certain benefit. We just don't know how perhaps to use a lot of it, you know. And we would make a medicine, and we would give it to the person. Okay, so that's not the practice I'm in now. I'm in know your own mind, know the Buddha nature, and let these two intersect, and we all get enlightened and go home. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but in its place, in its time in my life, that was a step forward. And so I was thinking about that the other day, that how we name something as good and something as not good. But when I thought about that time, these were weeds that we picked, that people thought were not good, that were actually good. We can make pastes, we can make salves, you know, I mean, Honey Deeper did so much medicine making. He should live to be 200. We had no doubt he's gonna live to be 200 because he knew everything that there was to know, you know, about everything about health. And that's why I say, see, Honey Deeper, you live that healthy way, denying yourself this and this and this and this and this, and I didn't deny myself that way, and we're both going to live the same amount of time. I'm glad I did it my way. And so now I'm not angry, or I'm not upset, or I'm not perplexed, you know, with my sicknesses at all. You know, but sometimes I wonder, how does somebody who oh my goodness, you have no idea. The way he is about, you know, spiritual life and the discipline, oh, he was that way about the body. And I'm going to tell you, you saw why they were coming, you did this. Because he was like this so present with the highest and best way to take care of your body, you know. Even when we would go to other people's house, they invite us for a meal, we go for a meal, and he comes in bringing his pots and pans out of the trunk because he doesn't want to eat out anybody else's dishes, you know. And so it was something. So just thinking in that way, that sometimes when you come up, if you can go back in your past and say, I've been at this place before. There's hardly any place we get to, any frame of mind, any thought that's a new one. You know, we're just constantly regurgitating the same thoughts and putting a different backdrop, you know. And so think of a time maybe when you had a similar thought and how that worked out for you. You know, whether it worked out good, the way your mind is going right now, or it worked out not so good. Whether it could have worked out good, but it was harmful to somebody else. So then how could you adjust your response? It maybe worked out not so good for you, but you could see that that was really the best alternative, and that we don't always win. Sometimes we suffer loss, but it's not a suffering when we can recognize the good that was accomplished, even though I may have not gotten out of it what I thought I wanted. You know, and it's in this way that we gradually rub out the self, you know. It's in this way that we just get in the orbit of life instead of sitting at the center of it. But we have to be careful how we speak to ourselves. And we have to be careful, you know, to reflect continually on what we're thinking and how we're thinking about something, and how we're responding to what we're thinking. You know, this is an investigation. I watch FBI stories on TV. Those are Dharma movies. I watch them to see how an investigative mind works, because I really didn't have one. You know, I like to just wait for a signal and do that, or don't do it. Or you know, I just had more of a free-flowing kind of way of moving in the world, and critical thinking skills that wasn't that important to me, you know. And so I watched FBI movies to see. I'm like, how in the world did they come up with that? You know, or so you see where their mind goes to. That mind, that's a no good mind. It always goes to the worst conclusion, you know. And you know, but I looked at that, but I found some things that I could use in that to bring more discrimination to how I look at things, you know. Of course, you get too much of that, and then you become hypercritical of everything, and you become super, I would call it investigative, but it's more like instigative, you know, and not even realize it. So it's really more about everything being in balance, but have it all is what I'm saying. And so he talks about in the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification. And I took that from page 130, but I want to go back to page 110, and I'm giving you these specific references so that you can look this up. I mean, the book is online, so you can download it and save it so you can have it to refer to at any time. And he talks about the 40 meditation subjects. And he said the 40 are these: 10 kasinas, 10 kinds of foulness, 10 recollections, 4 divine abidings, 4 immaterial states, 1 perception, and 1 defining. Those are 40 meditation subjects. Now, I guess we could come up with our own, but I probably would come up with my own after I've mastered the 40. But you can just choose, you know, you can come up with your own, but there may be some benefit in the 40 that were identified. And so he speaks of the 10 kinds of foulness. And he said they're these: the bloated, the livid, the festering, the cut up, the gnawed, the scattered, the hacked and scattered, the bleeding, the worm-infested, and the skeleton. About as close as I come to these is when I watch those FBI movies and they discover those dead bodies and they're taking photographs, and I'm looking at that saying, yuck, you know. But I'm not going to morgues. I'm not in India where they, you know, they just lay out in the open. And so I may not have, in my normal daily life, am so accustomed to seeing bodies hacked up, bloated, festering in the sun and the heat. But he says that there is a benefit to this. And he says that and how they can be used when we're overdoting on our physicality, our beauty, our, you know, and there's some people that are just consumed by how they look, and it takes all of their attention and awareness, and there's the tossing of the hair, and there's all of these things. I knew a lady, and one day after about 4 years, because whenever you saw her, she was perfect. She was a flight attendant in first class. And I got to know her because I was flying all the time for some clients to certain cities, and this was on the Eastern Airline hub, and so she was almost always on the plane when I was there, and we got to be friends. And you know, that's too much flying, but we got to be close friends. She was like the picture of perfection. And you know how in the movies they have their makeup is almost like paint? Well, now that's available to the average Joe Blow right now. You can buy the stuff that you spray on, and it takes all the blemishes and you don't see any of that. Okay, but this was 25 years ago. And but one day when she would take out in her hub, and she had a layover in DC, she'd come and she'd stay with me. But one morning she came down for breakfast after she got to know me really well, and she didn't have her makeup on. I'd never seen her. I didn't know who that woman was. I absolutely could not recognize her at all, you know. And then I realized that that's why she got up before anybody to put her makeup on. And that's who she became, that painted face, you know. And so it gets hard if we've walked with this painted face. And now the Buddha's encouraging us, go wash your face and see what's really there. And there may be blemishes, you know, but become accustomed to seeing. And in time, we will accept what's really there, and we will have the strength and the courage to just naturally do better with it, but not for the sake of fooling anyone until we get to the place that we completely fool ourselves. We don't know ourselves. I tell you, the deeper you go in the Dharma, the greater the capacity to do that, to fool ourselves. The more things we take up in the Dharma in the sense of disciplines, you know, the less compassionate we can become if we're not careful. The more we know, which lets us know what we don't know, the more lifted up in pride we become if we're not careful. And that's why to whom much is given, much is required. And so he talks about these 10. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about who they're for. Then he talked about the 10 kinds of recollection. The recollection of the Buddha or the enlightened ones, the recollection of the Dharma, the natural law, recollection of the Sangha, the community, the recollection of virtue, recollection of generosity. And recollection of generosity can be, if you're a generous person, you can recollect the mind that, and the sweetness of the mind that proffers the gift, where one doesn't even think of it as a gift, but maybe even as one's reasonable service. You know, when I'm thinking about what I have to do at Heartwood, I don't think I'm giving anything. I'm like, I'm still breathing. This is my reasonable service. You know, what shall I render for all of the benefits of the Dharma that I have received? And I think of what I can offer just within my own capacity. You know, it may not be a lot. It may not be much. Some people may not think it's worth anything. You know, but from within myself, offering the best that I have and not think of it as a gift, just a reasonable service for all the benefit that I receive. So that's one way to recollect. Another way of recollecting is looking at that as a goal and seeing where my mind can't meet up with that, can't get up with that. I was talking with Sister yesterday, and she said, Sister Claire Grace, and she said, you know, there was a conversation about healthy eating, you know, and I'm a little bit listening in where I was tuned out at all because I know what I like. But I have noticed how the food has cleaned up, and I was really happy about that because I want people to be healthy. I just want to choose what I want for me. Aren't we like that? And so, but I want to offer people the best, even if I don't take the best, you know. And so I've been happy that there are people with skills, you know, who can put this together, because that's not my thing. But then she was talking about nutritional yeast and everything. Yeah, hasn't it gotten expensive? It has doubled in price. You know, we gotta buy nutritional yeast. I'm like, no, we already said, like, we gotta have it gluten-free. We gotta have it organic, which you don't even want to know what I think about the whole organic thing. You know, you go a little ways and it looks like a good thing, but by the time they finish with all the definitions, all the exclusions of organic to natural, then I just have a different view than most people who feel like they have to eat organic to be happy, to be healthy. And so, I mean, that's just my view, and other people have theirs, you know. And so, if I felt that way, I would buy organic. But if I didn't feel that way, I don't see why I have to buy all organic because you feel that way. You know, so I'm thinking like this, you know, and pay double the amount of money for something that I don't really even believe in. So my mind is on a tangent now, you know, it's on a roll, and I see it, but that train left the station. It's hard to pull that mind back. And so she says, but Venro, we have to have nutritional yeast, because I said, well, why? I mean, nutritional yeast is a supplement, and if a person wants it, they can buy their own supplement. She says, no, you have to have it if you're going to be vegan. Well, then it must be something wrong with the vegan diet if you got to have nutritional yeast to be healthy. No, they need to buy their own nutritional yeast. Okay, that's the way I thought yesterday. I was very firm in my holding that, but you know, that thing wrestled with me all night long. It did. And it said, it's just nutritional yeast, you know? And why can't you let those people who feel like they need to have that on their food to feel healthy, because the mind is chief, and it, you know, and it doesn't cost that much, get the nutritional yeast. So y'all can go ahead and get the nutritional yeast. Just don't put it on my food. But I mean, you know, we fall out about things, you know, the way our mind goes. And the Buddha is saying, you gotta look at this. You have to see the way your mind goes and how it rationalizes, you know, and how,
Amanda said she'll bring her own next time. We also need it for the Holly Hop. dressing is good.
Dressing is really good. She said, well, we need it for the hollyhock. And they know I like the hollyhock. Now, see, that is foppery and being supery. There's a thing about speech, you know. Yeah,
You can have hollyhock.
who said that this way is not a joyful way? It really is when we can really, just really look and see how much progress we can make if we could hold these moments in a different way. Or even if you leave with the wrong idea, next time maybe you can come back with a different idea. But when you come back, here she comes with her non-nutritional yeast self, and thinking that was yesterday's conversation. That has nothing to do with today. Ask me again. It's like, that's how we can be. We don't have to say that's my story and I'm sticking to it. We don't have to say like, well, I said that now, so I can't change my view. We can constantly change our view. It's just when we get stayed and stuck in things. And so sometimes if I come at somebody about something today, sometimes I'll come to Sister Grace about something that I want to change. If she's not feeling it, I'm like, today's just not the day to talk to her about that. I just leave it. And I come back another day and I test the water. Oh, she's in this kind of mood today. So then I'll talk to her about that thing today because I know she's going to be able to meet it a little better than yesterday. Or at least that's how I'm thinking. Just look for the most favorable conditions. You don't always find them, or you might miscalculate. But at least just trying. Something you just don't have to say it today. If today is not a good day, don't say it today. Save it for another day. It'll still be there in your mind. Unless it's not. And this is how this fresh watering of the mind takes place. Don't care if they call you wishy-washy. You're moving, not stagnant, not concretized, making progress, being in the moment, being able to step up to something or step back from something. That, my friends, is a kind of freedom. And this is what he is encouraging. But we have to know our mind to be able to walk in that kind of freedom. And I tell you, when you have it, nobody can take it from you. But if you don't have it, when you have contrived and made up and always afraid of what somebody will think, or always needing to do something to make somebody think of you in a certain way, that stuff gets so tiring. So if you look at it, this thing that we call spiritual life, take out the word spiritual if that confuses you. It's just life. And apart from it, we're just like watching a movie of our life. When we get down to the end, we're befuddled and we're confused because we haven't sharpened our skill of investigation of states in one's own mind. I think I'm going to run out of time. What time is it? 1:10. Oh, I have run out of time. So if you could do this for an assignment this week, because all this year we're trying to take some of these things and put them into practice, right? So we're like becoming the Dharma being displayed in our actions, in our not just in our thoughts, but in our speech and in our actions. If you would go to the section in the Visuddhimagga on taking a meditation subject, and that's chapter 3, page 110 in my book. It'll be around there if it's not there, but it's paragraph 104. They're numbered, the paragraphs are numbered, or the teachings are like numbered. 104 through wow, this is so good. Whole book. 104 through the whole book. Well, it goes from page 110 to 114. But that's a lot. That's a year's worth of contemplation in there, really. But it does identify the 40 meditation subjects. What I like about this particular section is it starts to tell you how they're best used. For instance, the 4 divine abidings and the 4 color casinas are suitable for one of a hating temperament. Mindfulness of breathing is, and the one recollection is our meditation subject suitable for one of deluded temperaments and one of speculative temperaments. The first 6 recollections are suitable for one of a faithful temperament. And then it talks about some others that are suitable for one of a faithful, of a intelligent temperament, such as mindfulness of death, recollection of peace, the defining of the 4 elements, and the perception of repulsiveness and nutriment. Hey, I want repulsiveness and nutriment. Oh, that gives me some encouragement to keep going with that bland food. And then talks about some that are suitable for all kinds of temperaments. So if I have a certain kind of temperament is where I'm closing. You know, if I'm gonna practice, and you know, if we're gonna practice well, you know, take the medicine for the sickness. Find the ones that support the regulation of, you know, of your temperament. And if you don't know what your temperament is, within that same chapter, the taking of a meditation subject, it talks about the temperaments and how to sort of get to the conclusion of what yours is. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. Your mantra for this week is, can we read it again? All right. And there are profitable and unprofitable states, reprehensible and blameless, inferior and superior, dark and bright. A man wise in temperament notices how his mind inclines. And so I want you to notice how your mind inclines and come back with something to share that you really don't mind sharing. And so it can be something good, an observation, or something not good, I don't care. But just the assignment of studying one's own mind, anything you want to share in regard of that practice this week, or how the 40 meditation subjects, you know, finding the one. You don't have to come and ask somebody. You don't have to ask a teacher. They're telling us how we can figure that out for ourselves, right? May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you, no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. Now, we only have an hour and 15 minutes next week, so come prepared, concise, and bring your assignment with you. Okay, thank you. I won't speak next week, or you won't get to talk. Okay.
Bye, dear Sandra, thank you. Support the nutritional yeast.
Thank you for this.